How you doing, YouTube? We're going to kick into our Chinese Taiwan news. The main focus of the Chinese coverage is going to be their continuing COVID epidemic, their refusal to use good vaccines and instead use a subpar vaccine has created this really terrible situation for the Chinese people because their leader is too proud to admit that his zero COVID policy has been a failure, and he's desperately trying to find a way to save face, because we certainly can't do something as insane as admit that they were wrong. We can't admit that we were wrong because we're literally infallible. And this is the problem with cult of personalities and authoritarians who slowly evolve into godlike beings that need to be worshipped, right? This is the problem with that, is that they see themselves as infallible. Of course, they're not infallible, and they have to they have to pretend, right? They have to convince everybody else that they're infallible. So when they make a mistake, oh, I didn't make a mistake. That it's either a good thing or it didn't happen, and we see just total insanity, right? I think he hasn't seen soccer fans from Eastern Europe. Football hooliganism is the basis for many of their units, apparently. Some great docos on that. Really? Okay. They're talking about Kosovo and football hedonism, and that's fascinating. Okay. But anyway, moving back over to Taiwan, China here. We're going to start with the China news just because I have more clips. But like
let's try to.
It's really going to be a focus on the COVID, the failure of them to tackle the COVID-19 virus here.
Get a clearer picture of the COVID-19 surge spreading throughout China. We're joined by Yang Shengxi, a correspondent of China Global Television Network in Beijing. Yang, good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Can you tell us whether or not hospitals throughout China have the capability to deal with the number of COVID cases there, because we're receiving reports that they are now accepting, or at least being crowded with 5 to 6 times more patients than usual?
Well, I can tell you about the situation here in Beijing, because hospitals in Beijing are still operating under, of course, a lot of pressure, with reports of doctors and nurses having to stay on their shifts even after contracting COVID themselves.
Wow.
According to 2 major hospitals in the city, Tiantan Hospital and Shenwu Hospital, daily patients going to their fever clinics are currently about 200 to 250 per day. And that is lower than
how do you, as a doctor in China, surely the doctors are aware that there are better vaccines than the ones that are being mandated. How do you deal with that? Okay, you need the vaccine. Okay, here's the vaccine. You know for a fact the vaccine is not going to work as well as it could. If they were getting other vaccines, like, you just keep your mouth shut and just keep. That's the only way to survive, right? Because if you start speaking up, if you make a social case out of it, you'll get your ass arrested. So your only choice is just to keep giving people bad advice and giving them, inadequate medicine. God, that's got to be such a shitty, job. That sucks.
the peak of 300 to 500 daily patients last week, but the number is still substantially higher than normal, which was around 30 to 50 patients a day. So the influx of patients is still stretching thin vital medical resources.
And get this, folks, this blows my mind. There are people in China who don't have the vaccine. Like, what? I mean, talk about like the government, like Big Brother, kicking down your door and forcing you to take the vaccine. Like China literally did that. And there are still people in China who don't have the vaccine somehow. How is this possible?
Hospitals now need to find ways to expand their intensive care units and add more beds. And at the same time, most hospitals in the city say they have opened fast-track admissions for other emergency cases like strokes and special care persons like pregnant women. Tony?
Yeah, and can you tell us more about these fever clinics? What do they look like, and where are these being set up?
Well, most hospitals in China have an emergency section for emergencies like the ones I mentioned, like strokes, but they also have a separate entrances for people with fevers. Those are called fever clinics. So this is a standard practice in across hospitals in China. And for example, this month, health authorities in Beijing have said.
I'm not sure if they have or haven't. Lenny's asking, well, how come the WHO hasn't offered, vaccines to China? I'm not sure if organizations have offered the vaccine to China, but I'm sure that the Chinese government isn't interested in taking them. They're not seeking them out. They don't want them. They want this to be, they're insisting on using their own vaccine for nationalist reasons.
That the fever clinics in Beijing have actually tripled over the past months in order to cater to all the new patients with fevers coming into these hospitals.
Now, you've given us an idea of how the hospitals are dealing with the rise in COVID cases. But then again, we're also receiving reports that people don't seem to be bothered by that at all because there are a lot of people now traveling and crowding into subway stations. Is that correct?
Well, yes, while this COVID wave is hitting hard on senior citizens and those with underlying medical conditions, streets are, of course, empty.
I'm not going to. I mean, these people have been literally. Some of these people have been in apartment buildings that have been surrounded by metal fencing and their front door welded shut. You know what I mean? So I'm not really going to shit on them for wanting to get out and enjoy the rest of the holiday. But it's a failure of the Chinese government to not give them adequate tools to handle this, and then just like, okay, well, whatever, here you go. And then what do we see immediately? A massive upsurge in infections immediately.
Here than usual, but there are quite a number of residents who are taking advantage of the cancellation of much of the social restrictions. For example, I checked on one of the major shopping areas in Beijing last night. It was Christmas night. While China does not celebrate Christmas, this holiday has usually been a day when people just go out for shopping and some family fun. Since the area I visited no longer has COVID negative requirements and health QR code to scan, there were substantially more people than the same periods in the last 2 years, as far as I can tell. Now, shops were crowded, restaurants were full, vendors were out in droves. So no doubt, many residents are seizing the opportunity to try to bring back their pre-pandemic lifestyles. But most people I saw there were, of course, wearing masks, except for when they were taking selfies. Mask wearing has been very much a part of the life here in China for the past few years. So many people are sticking to it during this COVID peak, and health experts have urged people to keep each other protected so as not to stretch thin the supply of vital medicine.
All right, and very quickly, Yang, can you tell us whether or not this latest COVID surge has actually encouraged or even made people think more about getting vaccinated?
Well, there have been some confusion actually among netizens about whether they should still get vaccine boosters at this moment, as they fear that vaccines might in the short term affect their immune system when a COVID infection could be imminent.
Fucking
Others wonder if they
gaslighters
should
are
still get a
winning.
booster after recovering from COVID and thus having
Gaslighters are
antibodies. But the message from health authorities and experts remain the same, which is that most people should get boosted if possible. This will enhance the country's overall immune barrier, and this will become very important as the 2023 Spring Festival is coming up in January, a time when Chinese people travel back to their hometowns for reunions. It is sometimes called the biggest annual human migration on Earth. As many travel restrictions are lifted this year, many Chinese will be seizing this opportunity to travel and meet their relatives, and in some cases for the first time in 2 or 3 years. Health experts have been urging people who have not been boosted to do so as to avoid another COVID peak early next year.
All right. Thank you very much, Yang Shangxi from CGTN.
What's the animal this year? I've totally lost track. Wasn't last year the year of the rat?
Well, for more on this story, we can cross to France 24's Yana Lee, who's standing by in Seoul. Now, Yana, obviously, there's big changes ahead. Can you give us some details on what other rules are to be scrapped soon?
And talk about year of the dong.
Well, this news was much awaited for business leaders, for students, for would-be travelers, especially for members of the Chinese diaspora and Chinese nationals living abroad who had been hoping to visit their friends and families for years now. The scrapping of inbound quarantine is a massive change in policy of coming in from China. An illustration of just how isolated the country had been in recent years. There was this rule called the 5 1s, which meant that each one country could only send one flight using one airline on one route once per week. So, for example, Air France, where you are, could send one flight from Paris to Beijing once per week. That rule, too, is to be scrapped as of January 8th. From then on, travelers will only need a negative PCR test, and in theory, there will be more and more flights available. Concretely, what Chinese health officials have done is downgrade COVID-19 from a Class A disease.
Man, if you're getting on a plane and the fucking employees are wearing a hazmat suit and you're wearing a single layer mask, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, I'm a lefty. I'm a democratic socialist. That's the box you can put me in. You gonna get pissy? Gonna get pissy about it? Oh yeah, look, you got a little Trump thing. Oh, fuck you, bitch.
Chinese health officials have done is downgrade COVID-19 from a Class A disease to a Class B. Class A was alongside diseases such as the bubonic plague or cholera. So this really is in continuation of authorities' efforts to dismantle that strict zero COVID policy, a policy that didn't really make much more sense now, especially in regards to inbound travelers, as the virus is currently widely circulating in the country.
Oh, good. What's
now,
life without the
Yenna,
chuds?
as this dramatic U-turn on the country's COVID rules takes place, how is China's healthcare system handling the situation?
Well, China, as official national health officials, don't release nationwide COVID case numbers anymore. So we have these patchy numbers from local authorities. But what we do know is that the country is going through, is in the midst of an unprecedented wave. There's a shortage of medicines. Hospitals are under strain. My colleagues in Shanghai visited a clinic a couple of days ago, and they witnessed beds and stretchers lying across corridors with doctors and nurses really trying their best to deal with as many patients as possible. Just last week, Bloomberg News reported that they had seen leaked documents, internal documents from Chinese health officials that estimated that some 250 million people in the country contracted COVID-19 in the first 20 days of December. That's 1/5 of the Chinese population. Now, if for many of us around the world, this might feel like the new normal, this is something, a deadly surge is something that we have all experienced in many countries around the world. For the most vulnerable people in China, we're really heading towards an extremely critical time. A reminder that only 2/3 of Chinese people over the age of 80 have had their complete doses of the vaccines against COVID-19. And officials in China are working around the clock to convince the elderly to get all their jabs done, sometimes even handing out cash incentives. So this is a situation that we'll have to observe in the days and weeks to come.
Blows my mind that there are people
thanks so much for that
unvaccinated
update.
in China.
That's France.
Blows my mind. Use the power of YouTube to their advantage. Well, if they do, they're not doing a very good job, because you type in China into YouTube, and I understand this is my algorithm, but you type in China into YouTube, and it's just, China fucking up, 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 China fucking up. I gotta dig pretty hard to get to the fucking Chinese propaganda. So if they are doing a social media blast to convince people otherwise, they're not doing a very good job. Little tweet here from Jordan, who's pissed me off recently with Ukraine, but I thought I'd give him another chance. Yeah. Bro, I'm not this isn't the fash hour. Get the fuck out of here. Go jerk off to some fucking lolicon porn, you piece of shit. Fuck out of here. Debate lord. Fucking debate these nuts, bitch. So the U.S. will make Chinese, so this is interesting from Jordan here. So the U.S. will make Chinese show a negative COVID test before flying to America, but institute zero precautions within America as the virus spreads like crazy. Makes sense. I think it's a good point. I mean, the fact is that Joe Biden doesn't want that COVID heat. He wants to be the president that ended COVID. And it would take a death count similar to what we saw at the height of of no vaccine COVID, of that first year that we didn't have a vaccine. It would probably take death tolls and infection rates to rise to those levels for the Joe Biden government to admit that they were wrong. He should get whoever replaced Fauci to come out and say, well, put on masks and stuff, It really is a shame, though, that like the U.S. government should subsidize masks and hand sanitizer for every private company, for every private business. They should get free masks and hand sanitizer sent to them by the government so that they can distribute it out to everybody who visits their business. Not mandated, just, hey, if you want it, hey, you want a mask, you want a thing, yeah, that would probably cut back on millions of infections right there. No mandate, no law that says you have to do anything, but just providing the PPE to those people who need it, right? That's a good point I think it's a good point from Jordan there. All right, last little video here.
Strict COVID restrictions.
Now you know what? Fuck this. We've already covered all this. This is just PBS's take on it. You get the point. Moving on to Taiwan news, Taiwanese news. Some pretty hot shit happening. Some pretty steamy hot shit over here happening. Record number of Chinese aircraft buzzed Taiwan airspace. China sent a record number of aircraft to patrol near Taiwan's airspace on Monday amid renewed tensions between the two countries, according to the New York Times. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry said on Monday that a number of Chinese fighter jets, patrol and early warning aircraft, and military drones buzzed through its air defense system in the last 24 hours. Taiwanese officials also said a total of 71 Chinese aircraft were spotted around the island over the weekend, resulting in the Taiwanese military conducting its combat air patrol aircraft, Navy vessels, and land-based missile systems to respond to any possible attack, according to CNN. 47 out of the 71 Chinese aircraft were flown across the Taiwan Strait, the medium line that separates the two Asian countries, CNN reported. China's latest military initiatives come after President Biden signed the National Defense Authorization Act into law last week. That $858 billion defense authorization measures included $10 billion in military aid to Taiwan through 2027 and $800 million in security assistance for Ukraine in its ongoing conflict against neighboring Russia. Tensions erupted between the two countries after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the sovereign country earlier in August, which marked the first time a high-ranking U.S. official visited the country in 25 years. Pretty big deal. Pelosi's trip to the nation angered Chinese officials who warned the speaker of moving against their wishes and traveling to the country. Oh, yeah. So fucking worried. China has stepped up its military and domestic pressure against Taiwan in recent months. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Chinese military's Eastern Theater Command Senior Colonel Shi Wei, right? That's how you say it? Shi Wei? How do you say that? I'm curious now. Is it Wee or Woo? Shi Wei. Anyway. Said it conducted joint combat readiness patrols and fire strike drills around Taiwan, saying this is a firm response to the current U.S.-Taiwan escalation and provocation. The theater troops will take all necessary measures to resolutely defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity, she said in a statement. So, after Ukraine, I mean, I used to be like, before Ukraine, I used to be like, yeah, well, this is like, maybe the United States shouldn't be meddling in this, right? Like this feels like meddling, but the United States was 100% correct, and NATO was 100% correct about helping Ukraine in 2014 after the Crimean invasion. If it wasn't for the military aid that we sent to Ukraine after the Crimean invasion, Russia would have easily invaded Kyiv and taken that over. Even though the Ukrainian soldiers would have fought like hell, they wouldn't have had the tools they needed, to fight back and push Russia back as effectively as they did. Russia was not expecting that. The Russian military was not expecting that. So now I guess I agree with the 10 billion. Do I think China is going to invade? I don't think they're going to invade, but I do think that they're going to keep this up because they need to, in the current Chinese government, they think that they need to keep testing these borders, keep questioning these borders, and that, you know, maybe if they build enough, I guess maybe if they build enough artificial islands, they'll be able to, you know, in their eyes, legitimately claim territorial control. Fact of the matter is, though, is that the United States is not interested in letting China get away with that, and China has to be aware of that. So I wonder what the end game is. Is it just do this, delegitimize Taiwan until people forget, and then just eventually, you know, roll in there when people aren't looking? You know, like what's the long game? You know, a short-term invasion doesn't seem very likely. Seeing the success that NATO and Western allies are having in Ukraine, a lot of analysts are saying, well, you know, China's looking at Russia to see how successful, you know, an overt land grab would be against the Western alliances, and they're saying, well, you know, clearly they're not as bifurcated as China and Russia once thought. Clearly, there's a lot more unity than what they were, you know, betting on. So I don't know. I really don't know what the end game is here. You know, it doesn't seem like maybe the end game is wait for a corrupt Republican administration who they have a bunch of sex pictures or something on them, right? For them to get in charge, or just general corruption. Maybe they don't have compromise. Maybe they just have, you know, they're just like, oh, we'll just put money in your pockets if you do stuff for us. I don't know. I really don't know, like, what the long-term plan is for China in terms of Taiwan, because it doesn't seem like this is going to be a very successful invasion if they really went for it, you know.
Taiwan has announced that compulsory military service will be increased from 4 months to 1 year for men. The announcement comes amid increasing tensions between Beijing and the self-governing island. President Tsai Ing-wen said that conscripts would undergo more intense training to combat any military aggression from China.
It might be Christmas, but there's no festive hiatus in the standoff between Taiwan and China. Following heightened tensions between Beijing and the self-governing territory, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen announced that compulsory military service for men will be extended from 4 months to a year. She told the country the change was necessary to ensure Taiwan's survival.
It's frightening. It's frightening.
I have to admit that this is an incredibly difficult decision. But as president, as the commander-in-chief, protecting the national security and ensuring national interest, allowing Taiwan to survive eternally and that the people can live a free and democratic life for generations to come is an unavoidable responsibility of mine as the president.
This footage released by Beijing shows China's People's Liberation Army conducting military drills around Taiwan on Christmas Day. Taipei said 71 Air Force jets entered the island's airspace in 24 hours, the largest incursion to date. It follows a year of heightened tensions after US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in August. A move seen as provocative by Beijing, which considers Taiwan a breakaway province. All men over 18 will now have to complete a year of service, including 8 weeks of basic training, with pay for conscripts also increasing fourfold in what Taipei sees as necessary moves to keep Beijing at bay.
It's frightening. It's frightening that they feel like they need this, and it's frightening that they might be right. Line cut over here saying China is in another dimension as Russia. I think the most the U.S. can do is trying to pull out the chip production if necessary. So are you saying you don't think you don't think that if China were to invade, that the United States would be capable of pushing back China in the same way that that the United States has been able to push back Russia through Ukraine? I think it's fair to say that this is just pulling out of my ass, but I feel confident saying this, that the Chinese military is probably better trained, better equipped, more disciplined than the Russian military. But alternatively, the Russian military has more experience on the ground, whereas the Chinese military hasn't, when's the last time, World War II? Was that the last time the Chinese military was actually, shooting and killing, like actually on the ground, boots on the ground doing something? They've wisely avoided, that kind of on the ground fighting, stayed out of a lot of these. God, look at this chicken and Coca-Cola, yummy. But they've kind of wisely stayed out of some of these conflicts. U.S. has one China policy. What is the right China? What? One China? Well, I help me explain to me where you're coming from, Line Cut. So while Line Cut's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut the YouTube video off. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check out the description below there. Click on the link if you want to see what Line Cut was talking about.